Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah barakatuh. Welcome back to Shifa Talk. This is I'm speaking. Alhamdulillah, we're in today's episode about, when privacy feels lonely. Now, you're probably wondering what is in the background. Well, I will say is I kind of went on a little tiny journey on a hike and you know, I had my mic and I just decided, you know what? I'm going to record right here, right now. Only because I've been in my own personal journey of living a private life, doing everything on my own, and sitting with the silence. Now, of course, this episode is not about me, but me being here now really made me reflect. Now, some of you chose privacy, and nobody warned you what would come with it. They talked about peace, they talked about protection, they talked about moving in silence like it was empowering from the start. But nobody told you about the loneliness it is when you're in that stage of life where you're trying to move quieter. And the thing is, no one talks about loneliness. Everyone usually kind of, you got to be independent, you got to do things on your own, but they don't talk about, how it's not always fun, right? Or settling in or getting adjusted. The kind that shows up at night, the kind that sits with you when your phone is quiet, the kind that makes you realize how much of your life used to be filled by noise, not connection, noise. Because when you stop sharing everything, when you stop explaining yourself, when you stop letting everyone know what you're doing and why, life doesn't applaud you, it slows down. And slowing down can feel uncomfortable. When your nervous system has been used for so long, it's been so used to this high stimulation of intensity. There's a moment after you choose privacy where you think, did I isolate myself? Did I push people away? Am I doing something wrong? Is this really good for me? Or maybe I'm having a mental breakdown? And the truth is, you didn't lose people, you lost distraction. Privacy removes the buffer between you and yourself. It takes away the constant conversations, the updates, the reactions, the feedback loops, and suddenly you're left with your own thoughts, your own emotions, your own patterns, your own restlessness. And that's not something most people are taught on how to handle. You start noticing things you didn't have to notice before, and how often you reached your phone just to avoid being alone with your mind, how often you talked just to fill the silence, or how you overshared because you wanted someone else to feel comfortable and now you have that regret. How often you stayed busy because stillness made you uneasy. And now you find yourself twirling in bed. When that's gone, your body doesn't automatically relax, it tightens. Because stillness brings awareness, and awareness can feel exposing. This is where loneliness sneaks in. Not because you don't have people, but because you stopped leaning on them. Some of you stopped being the one everyone vented to. Some of you stopped being the one who always replied immediately. Some of you stopped being emotionally available to everyone. And that shift changes your social world, even when it's healthy. There are relationships that only survive when you overextend, and there are connections that rely on your availability and not your presence. When you stop over giving, stop over explaining, stop offering constant access, Some people drift, and that's what hurts. Even if you know that it's good and it's necessary, it still hurts. But here's something important to sit with. Not everything you missed was good for you. Not everything that left was meant to stay. But grief doesn't ask for logic. Loss is still loss. And you're still allowed to feel that without questioning your growth. Privacy often feels lonely because it removes mirrors. For a long time, you knew who you were by how people reacted to you, by who needed you, by who validated you, by who responded. When that's gone, you have to feel your own weight. And that can feel unsettling. This is where, being alone, being with yourself actually begins. Not the aesthetic version people romanticize, the real version. The one where you don't know what to do with yourself sometimes. The one where emotions surface without warning. The one where boredom feels heavier than busyness ever did. Being alone, being with yourself isn't about enjoying being alone. It's about learning who you are without an audience. You start seeing how often you used people to regulate your emotions, how reassurance calmed you, how being needed gave you purpose, how attention made you feel grounded. Now there's no one to outsource to that. So you sit with it, and sitting with it is uncomfortable. This is also where your relationship with the law begins to change. Quietly, not dramatically, not emotionally overwhelming, but just you here. I just wish you guys are here with me right now, just hearing this beautiful sound. Before, the sound used to make me uncomfortable. I'm not talking about the sound, not just about the birds, but I'm talking about the sound of sitting here alone and actually embracing all of this. What Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created. There's no noise, there's no people. There's just you. Well, there's just me here with nature. There's a time when the noise fades and you don't automatically, feel closer to Allah. Sometimes you feel distant, and sometimes you don't know what to say in your du'as. Sometimes you don't feel inspired. Sometimes you just sit there aware of Him without words. And that can make you feel like you're doing everything wrong. But you're not. Being alone strips faith of performance. There's no one watching you pray. No one's, there's no one here to hear you speak. No one to affirm your sincerity. It's just you and Allah. Just you with your thoughts and your beautiful heartbeat. Sometimes the silence is what makes us uncomfortable because we're not used to having it. We drown ourselves with loud noises. And that is uncomfortable. If your faith was always practiced around others, and I'm not talking about, practice in regards of our faith, but practice of just being human, always having to smile, always having to pretend you're okay. But this is where something happens subtly. With this, you stop rehearsing, you stop performing, you stop trying to sound spiritual, you stop trying to perform for others, you stop trying to perfect, your sentence. That's for me, for me, it's stuttering. I get nervous of stuttering. I don't know about you, but that's mine. But I want you to show up as you are. if that's quiet, if that's being unsure, if that's still learning. But Allah is always with you. He stays with you. He watches you. He knows you. You begin to realize that Allah doesn't rush silence. He doesn't interrupt stillness. He doesn't demand productivity. He meets you where you are, even when where you are feels unfinished. Privacy teaches patience, not patience with outcomes, patience with yourself. You stop forcing clarity, stop demanding answers, and stop pressuring yourself to know exactly who you're becoming. You allow growth to unfold slowly. There will be moments you want to go back to sharing more, back to explaining yourself, back to letting people in too quickly, just to feel less alone. That urge doesn't mean solitude had failed you. It means you're human. But now you're learning discernment. You're learning that not all connections nourishes, that some access costs more than it gives. That peace doesn't mean it needs a witness. Eventually, this takes time. Something shifts, not suddenly, but you notice you're less reactive. You pause more, you listen inward before responding outward. You don't need as much reassurance. You trust your rhythm. You feel more anchored. Being alone stops feeling like absence and starts feeling like grounding. You're not meant to stay here forever. Being here is not the destination. It's the place where you learn how to return to people without losing yourself, how to reconnect without over giving, how to present without performing, how to let others in without handing yourself away. And Allah walks with you through this entire season, quietly, patiently, without any pressure. So I ask Allah, Ya Allah, you see us here in the quiet that we didn't expect. You see the loneliness that came when we removed distraction. You see the discomfort that followed honesty. You see how hard it is to sit with ourselves without running away. Ya Allah, help us not rush back to noise. Just because silence feels unfamiliar, help us stay long enough to learn who we are without performance, without validation, without constant reassurance. If you removed people and habits or distractions so we could hear something deeper, give us the courage to listen, Ya Rab. If solitude is teaching us how much we relied on others to feel steady, Ya Allah, teach us how to learn and lean on you without fear. Meet us here, Ya Rab. Accept me where I am, Ya Rab. Ya Allah, accept me even though I have no confidence. Ya Allah, accept me when I'm still trying to figure out the answers to my questions. And Ya Allah, I ask you to accept me as who I am now. And Ya Allah, I ask you to soften me, to reshape me, and to prepare me for a healthier connection with myself and with you. Ameen. Jazakallah khair, everyone. I appreciate you sitting here with me. Subhanallah, if you only knew where I was. Subhanallah. I ask you to do one thing, and that is to give and dedicate some time to yourself, to reconnect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His creation. Jazakallah khair, everyone. Inshallah khair. I'll see you guys soon. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.